Hi friends, this is Caitlin and today we are celebrating another Pink and Main release. This June release is so beautiful. I'm sharing here the Stay Cool stamps and dies which we are going to be using to stamp and cut out our sentiment today. And then the star of my card is this Floral Shells stamp and die set. These are so unique and so beautiful. As soon as I saw them, I fell in love with them and I knew they were the first thing I wanted to use. I also am going to be using these embellishment dots, which are part of the subscription box, but usually they get brought on as part of the full collection the following month, so keep an eye out for those. And I love them because they match the new shades of cardstock that came out this month. Pink and Main is releasing a few new shades each month, and the two I'm going to be using today are Pebble and Middle School, and then this Curly Waves stencil. Before we get any further, if you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can join our crafty family and you'll be able to see the new videos I put out every Friday afternoon. So I am starting out with this Middle School blue cardstock and it's so bright and beautiful. I absolutely love it. I cut it out to measure 8.5 by 3.5, and that is going to be our main panel. And now I'm going in with some of the Pebble cardstock, and I'm going to be using one of the stitched Slimline dies. It's just one size smaller. So we have that nice little bright blue border the whole way around. And I wanted to try something different. I wanted to use my stencil, but I wanted to try dry embossing it, not just stenciling with it. I'm going to do both. I wanted there to be a little extra texture, not just the color. So I took a piece of craft foam and I ran it through my die cut machine and it worked out really well. It definitely gave that nice subtle texture to my cardstock, but also now I have this piece of craft foam that is like so beautifully embossed that now I feel like I have to figure out what I'm going to do, or debossed or whatever. Look at it. It's so cool. So now I have to figure out what I'm going to do with that craft foam. But I lined my stencil back up with where it was embossed, and I'm going in with a little bit of Lawn Fawn's Jellyfish ink, which is just a very subtle tan, kind of like watermarky ink. And I am just using one of those mini Ergonomic brushes and just being really careful because this stencil is so detailed. It would probably be ideal if you had pixie spray or something like that to kind of hold it in place, but I found that this worked fine. Honestly, I just kind of very gently circled or kind of like pounced on any of the areas that had a lot of wiggle to them. And I think that this kind of tone on tone combined with the texture added from embossing really just kind of has beautiful sandy vibes that just go perfectly with those shells on top at the end. And it was really easy to line up. So you could see I kind of took it off, checked it out, lined it back up, added a little more color here and there where I needed it just to make sure that the pattern was kind of nice and even the whole way across. So once I got that all set up, I am going to go ahead and attach my die cut panel to my main panel. And I'm just using a little bit of tape runner for that. And then I'm going to set this aside and we are going to start with our images. So I decided to use 3 of those shells. That's honestly why I went slimline with this, is because I wanted to incorporate as many of the shells from this stamp set as I could. So I'm stamping out these 3 and I'm using my all the time go-to Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. That is my favorite. I never have issues with smudging or smearing or bleeding. I don't have to wait for it to dry. I've tried a lot of other ones, but every time I come back to this one. So I am going to just stamp that on my Copic Express It paper. This is also my go-to Copic coloring paper. It works out the best for me. Again, I never have to worry about bleeding or smearing. It can hold a ton of ink so it doesn't bleed through the back and get crazy and mushy. So I am going to start coloring those in, but first I wanted to use the Stay Cool stamp set and dies because I am so in love with a die cut sentiment, and this set has so many beautiful sentiments that are perfect for so many summer cards, and every single one comes with its own die cut. I just think this is such a clean and beautiful look, and so I was dying to use it right away. So I just stamped out that Sunny Smiles, and I grabbed the wrong die at first, but I figured it out. I got there. So I'm going to line up my little die around that sentiment, run that through my die cutting machine, and I'll just set that sentiment aside, and we'll adhere it on later once we get our shells all cut out and we can start figuring out our layout a little more. I decided to go with a very soft and kind of creamy tan tone for all of my seashells. I'm going to be using the same color family, the same combination for all 3 shells, and that is my E43, E42, E41, and a little bit here and there of an E40 where there was just a little bit of extra width, and I wanted to make sure that my highlight was nice and blended. So I am just keeping my shading really simple. I'm following those artist drawn lines, and just kind of anywhere one part of the shell would kind of overlap or curve into another, that is the shadow I'm emphasizing. And I'm just being kind of really broad sweeps. I'm creating very broad sweeps of color to blend that out. I wanted these to look more on the soft and kind of elegant side, sticking with those neutrals. And I really wanted all 3 to be the same and very kind of fresh and clean, so that my florals could be kind of the fun pop of color that was going to tie in that blue background panel I used. So I'm just going in. I always work from my darkest to my lightest shades. If that seems overwhelming for you, by all means work from your lightest to darkest and then back up. That's definitely how I used to color. But the more comfortable that I've gotten with my shades, the more kind of brave or risky I'm willing to be when it comes to coloring in with my darkest shade first. So this shell was so much fun to color because it has all that extra texture, and I wanted to make sure that the inside where that flower is popping out at the bottom kind of had the most shadow, where everything would be kind of tucked inside, where the little sea creature would live. And then it was time to start bringing in my blue. So I grabbed my B18, B16, and B04, and I didn't want to overwhelm these with that blue because it is so bright. I also grabbed my Sandy Allnock hex chart to help me match up my markers to the color cardstock I was using, and I found that this trio combination works really well with that middle school blue. And then I wanted my leaves to be greener, but I didn't want them to be a true green or a yellow green that would really detract from the blue and the pink I'm going to end up using. So I went with some BG markers. I grabbed the ones in my 70 family, so 78, 75, and 72. And I'm just doing some very simple shading because the leaves on here are on the smaller side. So just using 1 or 2 of those colors and kind of changing up which 2 I'm using depending on which scene it is, which little floral bouquet it is, just to give it, you know, enough interest to match with the rest of the coloring, but not enough that it would kind of take away the spotlight from anything. I decided that I really wanted to pull in some pinks and kind of stick with this very cool toned design that I was creating, and so I grabbed these rosy markers, my R85, R83, and R81, and then I did pull in a little bit of that R89 for the centers just to give a little bit of depth, because I felt like the blue definitely had that strong contrast in the center, and I didn't want the pink to feel too light and kind of out of place. But I just think that this whole very cool toned color scheme is really different from kind of the colors I'm normally drawn to. And I think that it just feels so beachy and kind of like decor that you would find in a little bit of an older, well-loved beach house, at least kind of the ones around here on the East Coast. It definitely has some really kind of like grandma coastal vibes in the best way possible. I mean that in the nicest and best way, versus, you know, super modern and kind of cold. These feel very like warm and welcoming, and I just love the overall feel that this creates on this card. So I did go in with a little bit of white gel pen just to break up the center of those flowers, break up a little bit of those black lines, and then I die cut out my images with a little bit of washi tape and the coordinating die set, which just creates that perfect white border all the way around. If you are a master fussy cutter, you obviously don't need these, but I am very far from a master fussy cutter. And so I will take a die whenever I can get it. Fussy cutting does not bring me joy. So I just started laying out my images, and I decided that one shell would look so good at the bottom with the blue kind of grounding everything, and that the curly shell was perfect for the middle because it, with the offset of the flowers, it fit my sentiment perfectly. So I glued my sentiment in place with a little bit of liquid glue, and then I'm going in with these little foam squares with the adhesive on them to pop up all of my images. And now these I got from the dollar store, and I really like them. They're much thicker than the normal 3M tape that I use, but sometimes it's nice to have, you know, a little bit of extra dimension, and they're not like obscenely thick. So I really wanted to have them popped up. I knew I wanted to use those enamel dots to kind of create a little bit of shine and added detail, and when I add embellishments like that, I really love to tuck them under things, and so I popped those up. I also made sure that all of my images broke over the edge of my stitched panel to kind of just create even more interest and really push that the depth and the dimension that we're getting with that foam. I really thought that having it break over onto that blue frame would really help to push that, and I just like that extra added detail. Sometimes it's nice to keep everything kind of within the frame, but I really love the look of letting things kind of spill over the edges too. This June release from Pink and Main is absolutely one of my favorites so far since I've been a part of the design team, and I am just feeling so inspired. Definitely go on to their Instagram or the website. I'll have links down below for you, and check out this new release because I'm telling you, there's something for everyone. There's cute critters, there's beautiful florals, there's beachy vibes, there's stencils, embossing folders, stamps, embellishments, paper, so many beautiful things. Literally anything, whatever makes you happy, there is something for you in this release from them. I'm absolutely blown away by this one. So I am wrapping up my card by adding in those little enamel dots. I think they're really fun, and definitely a different way to add some shine without necessarily it being, you know, glitter or sparkles. Just something different and kind of unique, and I love that they come in different sizes. So that is my card all wrapped up. I hope that you're feeling super inspired. Definitely make sure that you go check out that new release that is out today, June 17th. I hope that you have the most amazing week. I hope that you have the best crafting weekend. Happy crafting, and thank you for being here.